welcome. Good evening. Minimize this. There we go. And I'm glad folks took some time out of their evening to join us. If you hear kids in the background, that's because I have kids. Welcome to the Grigsby household on a school night. But I don't think it'll be too much of a problem. I'm just trying to get this thing on my way. Okay. So we're going to talk about solar, all things solar, and our campaign, as we call it, to go solar in the Richmond area. There is my contact information. There is the website for the campaign. We'll be sharing, I think, if Stacey can say, we're going to share the slides with you afterwards. We want you to have all these resources. We are a mission-driven nonprofit here to help you do good for your home, for the world, and we're going to make it happen. So this evening, we tell you just a little bit about who we are and why we're doing this, and get in the details of how this campaign works, and also the technology, what you need to know about solar technology to feel comfortable about putting some of those cool panels on your roof. We have a case study, which happens to be my house. We went solar 4 years ago, so I have personal experience and data to share with you, and we'll wrap up with Q&A. So Veridiant, as I mentioned, a nonprofit based here in Richmond. We've been around for 15 years now, promoting sustainability in all forms in the built environment, but primarily making housing greener, more efficient, use less water, better air quality, greener materials. And in that, through those years, we have provided verification services for homes that are achieving a above code green building program, such as Earthcraft, Energy Star, LEED for homes, things like that. Over 31,000 apartments and single family homes in the Commonwealth of Virginia that we've certified over those years. A lot of people enjoying better air quality, lower bills, and lower carbon footprint. And Community Energy Services is our new division, and we're a small division. We're a small nonprofit. We're 12 people, and but we, 31,000 homes. We try and do a lot. And our new division is really trying to get services directly to homeowners and renters in existing homes, and to provide them home energy audits, to provide them with consultation about solar, and even expertise on how to do an energy efficient mortgage, what to do if you're remodeling. I mean, sort of from changing light bulbs to a gut rehab of a house, we are here to help you and help you do it smarter, to save money and be a little greener. So we call it a campaign because it is very much an effort to reach people. We are trying to get the word out there that solar works, that in the right situations it's very cost effective, and that you should learn something about it. If you're interested, it might work for you, and we're going to help you know for sure if it is, and how to be a very smart shopper when you go looking around for solar. There have been campaigns similar to this around Virginia for a while. REA, the Richmond Region Energy Alliance, LEAP, the Local Energy Alliance program in Charlottesville and Northern Virginia, and Solar United Neighbors of Virginia all have run or are currently running similar campaigns. REA actually merged with Veridiant a year ago, which is how I ended up here to do this work. So it's advancing kind of weirdly. So for this campaign, we have some very key partners. Solar United Neighbors, who I just mentioned, our nonprofit partner. Everyone who gets a solar installation through this campaign gets a free 1-year membership with Solar United Neighbors, gets their solar owners manual, which is an incredible document, and gets plugged into that organization, which really does a lot of work for solar owners on the policy side. They've been fighting battles with HOAs for a long time to make sure people can go solar. So great group based right here in Richmond. And we're also very excited this time around for the 2021 campaign that the city of Richmond and Henrico County are helping us get the word out. In particular, the sustainability office at Richmond and the energy management folks at Henrico County, who, it's part of their job every day to be more efficient, to promote clean energy. And so they've been a big help with us to try and spread the word. So how does it work? What do we do? How do we help you? We sort of the basic thing is that we're giving you advice. We are understanding what your needs are. It starts with a conversation where we're going to look at your roof. The beauty of, you see there on the right, the beauty of Google Maps, Google Earth. We can get a pretty granular look, particularly in the Richmond region. It's amazing how detailed the satellite pictures of our backyards are. Maybe unnerving, but very useful when you're trying to do a solar consultation remotely, because you can see almost everything you need. And down at the bottom there, you see a picture of a very nice spreadsheet. We can plug in the numbers, run the numbers, see what it means for you, see how much it will cost you, see what it will mean month to month over the years, so you can make an incredibly informed decision. One of the amazing things about solar, even though it's new to people, it has the benefit of having very few variables. There's not much to figure out. You have the cost of the system, you have how much energy it'll produce in a year, and that's kind of it. And both of those things you can know very, you obviously, you can know in advance. You can know the cost of the system, obviously, and then you can know with great certainty what it's gonna, how much energy it's gonna produce year in and year out. And you have a reason, you certainly know what the value of that is today. It's the, it's the what you pay your utility right now per kilowatt hour. So it's a safe investment. It's cool. We'll talk more about that as we go. So your steps, you're doing a great first one here by being part of this webinar. And the next thing you can do is share just a little bit of information with us. We need to know your address, and it'd be nice to know your name, so when we call you up, we can address you by your name. There's a form, veridiant.org/solar. You see the URL there, or feel free to just reach out to me directly, energy@veridiant.org. There's my personal number right here. It'll ring. Let's talk. Let's find out if this is right for you. Even better than talking on the phone is for us to come and do a home energy audit at your house. We are promoting solar for sure, but we are actually 100% clean energy agnostic. However you find a way to reduce reliance on fossil fuels and polluting fuels, we're here to help. And generally, for most homes, and in some cases, and really for all homes, energy efficiency is going to be your first start as far as super cost-effective changes you can make that will lower your costs. Some homes are under giant oak trees. Some homes are the south-facing roof has got a bunch of dormers in it, and there's no room for solar panels, and there's no room in the yard for a solar array. But almost every home needs some basic efficiency improvements. And so we can do a solar consultation at your home, in your yard, looking at your roof, talking about the issues. And while we're there, we'll do a top to bottom inspection to look in the attic, look in the basement crawl space, look at heating and cooling equipment, look at insulation. We're going to find you some opportunity. I guarantee you, it's going to be things you never knew had such a big impact on your energy bills. So that's the sort of personal education part of this, step number 2. Step number 3, if you're a good candidate and you have a good understanding of the economics and are ready to get a bid and maybe seriously do this, we'll connect you with one of the campaign's vetted contractors. We've gone through a elaborate process really to find you some great local installers who give very competitive prices on very good installations with you know, premium materials. And these are folks who have some of the most experience in the state, and they're folks that, you know, we vetted and we stand behind, and we're glad to refer them to you. But our involvement doesn't end then. We have multiple bids. Other campaigns often have a set price and one campaign installer. Our perspective is that this is a big investment. You should get multiple bids. And you should find a contractor you're comfortable working with, and you should make sure for yourself that you're happy with the price. And so get multiple bids, and we'll even help you look at those bids and understand what they're saying, because for most folks, this is new stuff, and choose the one that's right for you. You sign a contract, you'll find that installation is pretty painless. It's on the roof for the most part. A little bit of work at your electric panel. It can, you know, sometimes it can happen in one day, sometimes it's a couple days. And when you're done, there's a lot of joy involved. As I found, I was promoting solar for years before I got my own array, and then started spending lots of hours in my backyard just gazing at solar panels making electricity, marveling at what they did, and just being happy about it. Our installers, we have 3 of some of the most experienced installers in Virginia, Alt Energy. They're based in Charlottesville. They work all over the state. They're, you know, some of the granddaddies of solar in Virginia, been around for a long time, done a lot of work, you know, been successful and have expanded to other states even, but still based locally. Baseline out of Blacksburg has a Richmond office. You talk to some of their previous clients and they just rave about them. They give competitive prices and clear proposals, which I like a lot. Shaco Solar, based in Ashland, so the most local, done a lot of projects around Richmond. You've probably, you know, if you've noticed a solar panel in the Richmond region, there's a fair chance that Shaco Solar has installed it. Again, years and years of experience. And we are glad to have all 3 of these who we selected through an RFQ process. And we're glad to have these folks as the ones that we will refer you to. So let's get into a bit of the sort of the science. You know, we want you to be smart shoppers. We're gonna help you know the details here, how this all works. You don't have to know all this stuff, but you know, we're gonna do a quick cruise through it just so you're familiar. And just so you know, like a lot of things, you can start doing a little internet research, and 6 hours later you know a few things, but you got a lot of questions, and that's what we're here for. We're here to save you that 6 hours. Give us a call, send me an email, save yourself a lot of pain. Number 1, we're talking about solar electric panels. We're not talking about solar hot water or solar thermal. That's a great technology that is not part of this campaign, frankly. Though these installers will, you know, they can offer you that if you're interested. I, as a you know, green building consultant, often will probably steer you away from that, because solar electric is such a more versatile tool. But you know, if you got tons of roof, we can still talk about it. But photovoltaic is, we're talking about PV, which is light to energy. This is that's the solar electric panels, where we are converting the energy in the sunlight to a flow of electrons that can power things in your home. When we're talking about electricity, watt is the relevant term. You've heard of a 60-watt light bulb, or maybe a 1,000-watt electric heater. It's a unit of instantaneous power. And we very quickly start talking, as you see how few horsepower it is. We talk about thousands of watts. So kW is a kilowatt, or 1,000 watts of instantaneous generating power. And then if you look at your electric bill and look past the dollar amount, you'll see how many kilowatt hours you consumed each month. Those are what you're billed for. That's what the utility counts up. And kilowatt hour is that 1,000 watts used for an hour. So maybe a 100-watt light bulb burning for 10 hours, that would be 1 kilowatt hour. And in this area, you'd pay 11, 12 cents to burn that 100-watt light bulb for 10 hours. So I'm showing you lots of pictures as we go. Here's a nice ranch house, lots of sun here. They got a garden going too. There's a bunch of panels up on there. I'd call this a pretty big array. We've got 10, 20, we're pushing 30 panels up there. You see each rectangle is an individual panel. Those panels are made up of solar cells that have for many years been manufactured just like this, and no sign of that slowing down soon. 6 inches square, silicon, and though sometimes now you're seeing half cells cut, so there's less waste in the manufacturing process, where they'll be 3 inches by 6 inches. Those are grouped together in a solar panel. And there's really only 2 different sizes of solar panels. I think regular and jumbo. 60 of these cells on a panel, or 72 are the larger ones. They don't make triangular ones. They do, there are some shingles out there which may use this technology, or something, what we call thin film. The shingles are pretty expensive, so we're pretty much just talking about solar panels here. You put all these panels together, and we call that an array. Whether here's an array of 4 panels, here's an array of, I've got this thing, piece of the GoToWebinar in front of things. Or here's an array of 10 panels. The whole system that you need to make it all work for you is not only the panels, but wiring, racking that they're mounted on, and then an inverter, which will convert the direct current energy, which comes off all solar panels, to alternating current, which your home can use. This little graphic shows batteries there. That's not critical by any means for a solar array to be functional in your home. My home does not have batteries. Most solar installations these days do not have batteries, but we'll talk more about batteries in a little bit. We talked about watts. The reason I explained watts as a unit of instantaneous power, it's because when we talk about solar panels and the ones you're buying and putting on your roof or in your yard or elsewhere, you want to know what is their generating capacity. And I always compare this to like the horsepower of your car, where you may have a 90 horsepower engine in your car. That doesn't mean that's what it is doing all the time. If you're just cruising down the road at 10 miles an hour, you're not using all 90 horsepowers. I keep saying horsepowers. Similarly, a solar panel that's rated for 350 watts, it's not producing that all the time. That's what it does in a lab under ideal conditions. That's when the equivalent of sunlight, unobstructed sunlight, no clouds, no pollen on it, is hitting it perpendicularly. So perfect conditions, that's what it can do. Just like if your car engine, when it was brand new or in the in the factory when it was, someone floored it, here's basically what it would produce. Same thing for these solar panels. That's what they're producing under ideal maximum situations. The cell efficiency is something that probably more lay people take interest in, is how efficient are the solar cells in that panel at converting the energy in sunlight to electrical energy. And currently, most panels are going to be in this sort of 20%-ish range. That is, I wish that were, moving up the way memory and computers, sort of increases exponentially so frequently. These are not. They are hitting certainly higher numbers in labs with very expensive materials and pristine conditions. But as far as what is available on the mass market that's affordable for you to buy and put out in the weather, these are the efficiencies we're looking at these days. And they're not creeping up super fast. So waiting for a 30% efficient solar module is probably not going to be a good strategy. You'll miss many years of solar joy in the interim. Here's a nice little solar array here that's not on a roof, a little carport shade there. So what do we have? 16 panels, a sort of moderate size solar array. When we in the industry talk about solar arrays, we don't actually talk about the number of panels. We just talk about what is its generating capacity. And instead of talking about watts, we're now talking about thousands of watts. So how many kilowatts is that array? So let's call that 15 watts and for easy math. And if 15 panels, if each of those panels was about 333 watts, and there were 15 of them, we'd end up with a 5,000 watt array, which we would call a 5 kilowatt array. And again, that's its peak potential generating power. And in the industry, folks would know, oh, that's maybe 14, 16, 18 panels, depending on how productive the individual panels are. We'd assign a certain size inverter to it, and it would produce, under good conditions. And this, with local weather, we could get an idea of how productive it would be as far as producing energy. And that is sort of the key thing. The local weather is, a huge driver. How cloudy it is through the year, the seasonal changes where the angle of the sun is different in winter versus summer, and obviously the hours of daylight. The panels are productive when the sun is hitting them as close to perpendicular at power. Those shoulder hours, early in the morning, late in the afternoon, there might be sun on them, but they are not producing much power at all. I'll show you some graphic presentations of that in just a minute. A little more of the pieces. On the right there, you see an inverter, which is a sort of the central brains of the operation, where it's converting alternating current to direct current. That's connected to the internet. It's sending all kinds of data to you, and yeah, sort of the brains of the operation. And an alternative to that is panels that have little tiny inverters on each one of them, which is sort of what's shown there on the left. You see the little pieces wired in on the back of those panels. Those might be what we call DC power optimizers, which are sort of a hybrid between what we call a string inverter or the microinverter option. This is kind of in the weeds. You may want to learn this for yourself. You may just want to take your installer's advice to say, because you're in full sun, we can do a string inverter and it's very productive and a little cheaper to install. Or you've got some shading issues, we might want to talk about DC power optimizers or micro inverters. That's something where your installer is going to steer you towards the right solution for your location. It's location driven. The racking, you see there are aluminum rails there that the panels just clip right into, sort of a big erector set. You have the feet that slide up under the shingles, so they're lapped in just like a shingle. They don't leak. There are plenty of installers been installing for years, and people ask them about leaks, and they say, never had one. It is not difficult to install a system that does not leak. That's not the issue in our industry dealing with leaks. The issue is making sure people understand that it's not the issue. So, I mean, there we go. Those are kind of the big pieces of it. And you put it all together and you have a home with a little power plant up on the roof. And that's what it is. It collects the sunlight, turns it into electricity, and sends a flow of electrons down to the inverter, which converts it to alternating current. And then that sends that power over to your electrical panel where the breakers are, where also the energy from the power company is coming into your house. And so basically now your home has two different power feeds to it. One from the single power plant on your roof, and then the other line coming from the power company, the utility, which is actually multiple power plants, all blended together, coal and natural gas and nuclear and a little hydro and increasingly some solar farms and wind. That mix of electricity is coming in from the power line. Your home will use the electrons that are closest. So if your home needs it, it will always sort of suck in that electricity from the solar array. If your solar array is producing more than your home needs at any given moment through what's called net metering, we can send that energy back out onto the grid, and basically your meter will run backwards. We'll talk about that in just a second. But that's, I like this little drawing just showing where the power comes from and what it goes to. And really, if you'll notice, the lines coming from the power poles to the panel are two-way, because that's the net metering where we can have a flow of electrons in either direction. So it is a power plant. I talked a little bit about how the energy produced by the solar panels, the electricity that comes out of them increases during the day as the sun starts to get more perpendicular relative to the panels. This is a little graph taken from the app on my phone for the solar array on our house from last summer. It was a pretty good summer day. And as we headed into 10 o'clock and noon, we peaked at a little over 4 kilowatts of instantaneous power. And sort of the green area under the line is kilowatt hours that added up through the day. And by the end of the day, we had produced 31.5 kilowatt hours. That's at, 11, 12 cents a kilowatt hour. That's, $3.20, 30 cents a day. Not a lot, but day in, day out, it adds up. Now, net metering is where, let me go back up. So in the middle of the day there, this was a July day, plenty of times when the AC is not running, very little is running in the house, and I won't need 4 kilowatts of power. That's a lot in that home. Maybe the refrigerator's going, a few lights, the router. I mean, I'm really only sucking 1.5 kilowatts. The rest of that energy at that instant, when it's produced, it's being fed back onto the grid. And what I end up with is months where the net of the kilowatt hours I pull off the grid is 0. So you see these months from May even through November into December, I have put well, through these months, I put more kilowatt hours onto the grid than I've drawn from it. And I've even built up a little credit such that probably through November and December, I'm still living off that credit of kilowatt hours that I built up through those summer months. And you can see over here, I mean, these are my bills. This is real data. For those months when my net purchase of kilowatt hours from Dominion was 0, I just pay $7.98 to have an account, to stay connected and to draw from the grid nights and cloudy times and cloudy days when the AC is still running full charge. I mean, I use the grid then. It's essentially my battery, is one way to think of it. And then come those winter months, I'm producing less and I draw as much as 860 kilowatt hours off of the grid to keep my house running moment to moment. It's invisible to us in the house. We don't know, you can't tell when we're running on solar electricity, when we're running on grid electricity. That's all instantaneous and totally invisible to us. I can pull up my app on my phone and look at what the solar array is producing. I can't pull up on any app and look at exactly what I'm pulling off the grid. That would be nice for us energy geeks. But you know, and then you see exactly what you pay at the end of the month. So what this means is that I end up recouping the full retail value of every kilowatt hour that I produce but can't use right that instant. I don't need batteries to recoup that value. That kilowatt hour goes onto the grid. My meter runs backwards in essence, and such that, you know, when that evening, when it runs forwards, some of that is just recouping, you know, it's just going back over the ones that where I've already pushed it backwards. So it's pretty simple and wonderful for getting, again, full retail value for that. Because often when you go to sell something, they don't necessarily pay you the full retail value. Now, these days, you can install systems that are large, that will produce in a year's time more than your home may use in a year. For a long time, this a bit in the weeds of policy, but you were essentially, there are a lot of disincentives to overproduce, as they call it. Now they're sort of opening that up based on some legislation last year. You're now able, legally allowed to basically, when you're installing a system, to kind of oversize it with perhaps the expectation that down the road you'll add to your electricity load. Maybe you're going to put on an addition. Maybe you're going to switch to an electric vehicle or retire that old gas furnace and get a fancy new heat pump. Lots of reasons why you might start boosting your electricity load relative to other things. Now that's if you have the space for it. Plenty of homes, it's just not a question. You've got X amount of roof space and here's all the panels you can put. But at its core, net metering is a tool for you to capture the value of every kilowatt hour you produce. And that's why I sort of think about a solar array. It's not to really get to the economics of it. The question isn't so much how much does it lower my bill. The question is, even though that's what this shows, the question is how much value does it create? how many kilowatt hours does it produce per month or per year? And then what's the value of those? Because I've basically invested in a power plant to make electricity, and I paid money for that, and I want to know, am I going to get a good return on that investment besides the environmental benefits, which you may say, well, I'm willing to pay extra for that. Plenty of people pay extra for green energy. So you may be very happy paying a slight premium or a large premium to have a good chunk of your electricity be from solar right on site. But it is understanding you're buying a power plant, it can produce X amount of electricity per year, and you're probably comparing that to what you would otherwise purchase from the utility. So the big question, what does it cost? How much? And folks often ask, well, how much do I need? How many solar panels do I need? Which is, as I've alluded to, is not quite the question. Usually the question is, how many panels will fit on your roof? And then how are you going to pay for this? And if you're borrowing money, can you, do you have the ability to sort of max out what's on your roof or not? And if you, for example, say you have cash, I have X amount of cash, we'll buy this amount of solar panels, and that's fine. You don't have to install panels to offset all your electricity use. If you offset 50% of your electricity, that's great. If you offset 20%, that's great. If you offset 99% of your electricity from the grid with solar from your roof, that's great. But usually the question is, how much roof space do you have, and where am I going to get the money to do this? So a smallish array, a 4 kilowatt array, 4,000 watts of instantaneous power. So 10-ish, 12-ish panels, depending on which panels you choose. A price for that you might see might be $3.25 per watt. That's really how you should shop for this. What's dollars per watt? It's very modular. You know exactly what you're getting. It's straightforward. It's good for the industry. It's good for the consumer. What's my price per watt? And a smallish array, and like anything, there's volume discounts. As you see here, as the arrays get smaller, the price per watt goes down, because a big expense for any installer is just rolling the truck to be there, and or setting up the file for the person. It's the cost of being there and doing business. So if they can do a bigger job, they'll start to see economies of scale, and that's where you see the prices stepping in. And these are just example prices, but they're certainly ballpark prices, I would say. So that smallish array might cost you $13,000 or so. There's a tax credit. We'll talk about that in just a second. It's 26%. So taking that straight off the top, you can look at your net installed cost. They're a little under $10,000. And if that's a really good array, as far as its orientation to the sun and very productive, then then we can talk about what value it actually produces. Here's what it costs. Remember, I said there are 2 questions. I may come up with a third, but 2 questions. What does it cost, and what value does it create for you? So here are some general numbers for costs. And the point, these aren't to scare you off or say you can or can't do it. To some degree, it depends on how you're going to pay for this. If, say, you're rolling into your mortgage, if you're doing a home equity line of credit, all these installers can offer financing for any of these numbers. Or maybe you're paying cash, and that's your limit. But sort of your access to capital certainly is another issue, and we're glad to talk you through some of those options. So these are more little screenshots from my phone. Well, the one on the left, that's my electric meter after 4 years. That's the net 13,000 kilowatt hours that I've drawn off the grid, because it started with 0 on St. Patrick's Day, 2017. And then in the middle, there's just an, sort of instantaneous snapshot, a moment when I was producing just under 1 kilowatt at that moment. And for that day, I was up to around 17 kilowatt hours. You see what it did in a month, what it had done over the lifetime. And here you can compare that lifetime, 33 megawatt hours, so 33,000 kilowatt hours, compared to the 13,000 kilowatt hours on that meter there. So what that is showing you is that I've, very rough math here, 70%-ish of where my solar array is produced. You put those two together and you get what my house has used over those 4 years. 13,000 plus 33,000. My house has used roughly 46,000 kilowatt hours over those years, and 33,000 of those have come from the solar array. So about 30% of the electricity for this house has been from the solar, and then, 70% from solar, and then 30%-ish off the grid. And then the image on the right there showing, a nice little graph of through the year. You can see how a given month varies over different years. That's weather. That's September of 2018 was cloudy. So you see the orange line there over September is way below some of the others. And, that's just the variation through the years. And for November, the best year was 2020. We had more sun that year. This is just, that's just the weather through the years. So we talked about the price. Then the question is, and I've sort of led up to this a little bit, how much energy does it make during the year? How many kilowatt hours, which, I think of as dimes. They're a little more valuable than a dime, but how many dimes did that thing chunk out over, day in and day out over those years? Well, you can know that pretty well in advance. That's the beauty of this. You can't do this with many other investments. Know, what it's going to produce over the years. There's this wonderful website, PV Watts. You see the web address right there. pvwatts.nrel is the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. It's a division of the U.S. Department of Energy out in Golden, Colorado, outside of Denver. And they have this very simple, easy to use website. And where I went on, just as I was, before I even bought it, to try and get a sense of how much energy it would produce during the year. I put in the size of the array, and mine is actually 2 arrays. There's one at one roof angle and another at another roof angle. So that's why there's 2 reports here. There's 14 panels on a steeper section of the roof. That's what you see on the left, and then 6 panels on a porch that's flatter. That's on the right. You see, back then it predicted that I'd make 8,300 kilowatt hours per year, give or take. And as it turns out, over the ensuing 4 years, my average was 8,244 kilowatt hours per year. So within pennies, frankly, of what had been predicted 4 years prior. Again, a safe investment. I use electricity. We know we're going to do that. I knew the cost up front, and I knew pretty darn well what it was going to produce over the ensuing years. Over the last few years, actually, the price of electricity from the grid has stayed pretty constant. Likely that's going to go up, and so then the value of those kilowatt hours changes a little bit. But here's where you see $3,716. That's the value of what it's created. And that's what I use to offset the purchase price if you're looking at sort of simple payback. So my cost to install this after the tax credit was, a little over $10,000. So if it's making, over 4 years, $3,700, which comes out to about $77 a month, I'm looking at a little over 11 years to simple payback. That's pretty great. But as it turns out, we pay for this on our mortgage. We're paying at 4% over 30 years. And so that initially, we actually just refinance. But so I'm looking at it in more of a cash flow perspective. Based on the initial mortgage, that $10,400 cost me about $53 a month. Meanwhile, the system makes on average $77 a month worth of value. That's called making money. Every month, I have $24 more in my pocket. So now, and this is a pretty perfect setup. The back of my home, and there's the back of my home. It's a little junky. Apologies. But it faces almost due south. There's almost no shade. There's a tree to the right that I trimmed just a tad. And it's a great setup. And I got a good price. And, this is sort of how good it can be. It's a bit rare that you'll find a setup this well. I got lucky. And I got lucky based on how my house sits. It wasn't anything else. The street runs due east-west in the back of the house, and there's no shade, and the shingles were new. So it was just a great setup to go solar. And that's, you may find the same. So I've hinted at what makes a good site, and it's sun. It's the sun. You want a lot of sun. You don't want shade. You want it to face generally south, because here in the northern hemisphere, that's where the sun shows up. You want your roofing material to be in good shape. This is at least a 40-year product. So you don't want to have to replace your shingles in 10 years. So shingles that are really no less than 7-8 years old. Metal roofs are great. So that's going to be, if you need to replace your shingles, you should do that before you go solar. Structurally, we get a lot of questions about this. They are not heavy. They are, any new building should, if it's built for the local snow load, it's all good with a solar array. If it's an older house or you have questions, you can get an engineer to come and look at it. We actually had to do that with our house. It's 80 years old, and we have some creative framing in the attic. So we did that step, and all is well. A few more installation best practices have to do with not just putting solar panels everywhere, because in some places, they're just not going to make electricity. If they don't get a lot of sun, they're going to be a poor investment. Now, you may be happy with that. You may say, hey, I want panels if they're making 2 kilowatt hours a year, I want the panel up there. So you're optimizing for production, but you're not optimizing for economic value. And that's, that is quite simply your choice that your installer can talk you through. The federal tax credit, I mentioned this earlier, currently is 26%. It's a very simple form. It's a one-page form. And if you owe, $5,000 and your credit from your solar array is $2,600, now you only owe the feds $2,400. And if you only owed $2,000, you can take that other $600 the following year. You have up to 5 years to recoup the value of this. And as you can see, it's starting to step down. So it's a good reason to act now. People are excited about batteries. They're expensive. Some people still want them, and all of these installers are glad to do it. To have sufficient batteries to charge your whole home is a lot. You could have some sort of for key functions as backup power. We're glad to talk to you through some of these details, and even about the time that may come before too long when time of use rates for electricity are starting to introduce the opportunity to recoup some value by working with the utility as far as when you discharge your battery to get some value from that.
Hey, Andrew,
Yeah.
chiming in, we had one specific question come in
Yeah.
about the batteries,
Mm-hmm.
and it might be something to go into more depth about offline with this attendee, but they were specifically asking about kind of benefits and incentives around the batteries, and so what you were kind of saying about the time of use rates perhaps answers that question a little bit. Is there more that you could elaborate on, perhaps?
Yeah. The Clean Economy Act of a year ago established some targets for the utilities to start introducing batteries, but it hasn't, if some of that sort of trickles down to the residential level, it hasn't happened yet. It may yet. There are other utilities around the country that are incentivizing batteries in residential situations. I don't see that happening real soon. And there are no rebates for the well, if you install the battery as part of your initial whole solar program, your whole solar, I hate to say solar system because that has another meaning, but as part of your whole solar installation, the batteries can be part of that so that you effectively get a 26% federal tax credit on them. So that's some incentive to install batteries when you do it, but yeah, it's, if you're real interested in batteries, my recommendation is let's find out why you're interested and see if it is actually the right tool to achieve those goals. Because that's really the big question.
Thanks, Andrew.
We're all about the right tool for the job. And, but here's one that's kind of always the right tool for the job. As I mentioned before, if you're thinking about going solar, start here, because it makes no sense to make a bunch of energy from solar panels to just kind of waste it on incandescent light bulbs or giant leaks in your duct system in your attic, or a 30-year-old heat pump. Let's get your home a little more efficient in tandem, or and in some cases instead of a solar installation. This is, energy efficiency is clean energy, just like solar energy. A penny saved is a penny earned. And so we're here to, for as little as $45, to come do a house call, do a top to bottom inspection, and give you lots of very practical advice. No cost solutions, low cost, high cost, and everything in between. And while we're there, we're going to install, if your home qualifies for a utility rebate, we're going to install a bunch of LED light bulbs. I was in a house this afternoon and installed more than 50 light bulbs. And again, they paid $45. And if you have an electric water heater, we'll insulate the hot water pipes in your basement or crawl space, wherever we can get to them. So truly remarkable value for $45.
A question coming off of home energy audits and thinking about someone who is about to move into a new home. Their question is it best to have a home energy audit done right when you move in, or perhaps to unpack that a little bit, is it best to have some historical data through utility bills to be able to analyze before having you come to the home?
Yeah, great question. It's always great to have data to look at, to understand past usage. But what's most important is get an energy audit now, and particularly moving into a new house, because boy, we can learn a lot looking at it. We can help you know how to operate the house to avoid wasting money. I mean, why spend a year wasting money to find out you wasted money? Is sort of my point. Let's get in there and I find just today, folks just bought this house. I went in the attic. There's a big duct disconnected, blowing air conditioning into the attic. They just bought it. They didn't know that. The inspector didn't find that. But we find it. That's what we do. We look for those things. We get excited when we find those things, because then we can tell the homeowner, look, this is important. We can, this is opportunity to stop wasting money, to be more comfortable. Why is that room cold? Oh, well, because it's not actually getting conditioned air. So do it now. I mean, that's the long and short of it. Get it now. Brand new house you just moved into, perfect time. Let's get it right. So to recap, how does the campaign work? We call it signing up. It just means, we're beginning the conversation. You're giving us your address so we can look at your home, look at the roof, talk to you about your electric bills, figure out what your needs are. That's the consultation. Let's get you an energy audit. Let's get in the house and find opportunity for all kinds of clean energy solutions. You're a good candidate for solar. Let's get you a bid from a great local installer. And if ultimately you go solar, it's remarkably easy. I mean, that is one of the great things about solar. It's all on your roof. It's not like, insulation or improvements or duct improvements where a bunch of people are crawling around your house. With solar, it's just on the roof. It is easy. It's nice. So reach out. Thanks again to the City of Richmond and Henrico County and Solar United Neighbors for being our partners in this campaign. And glad to take more of your questions.
Thanks, Andrew. And thanks everyone for joining us this evening. We're happy to hang on for a few minutes and answer any last questions. If you do have to jump off, we understand, and you'll be hearing from me shortly with all that follow-up information. So, Andrew, the next question that came in is a multi-part. I'll unpack it a little bit in smaller doses. Their question is around why solar and not residential wind, specifically as it relates to solar panels being easily damaged and highly expensive to replace and repair, and what steps and precautions do you take to ensure that they're kept safe?
Okay, great question. Yeah, humans have been using wind for a long time, right? Here's the beauty of solar panels. Let me find a good slide. No moving parts. It's sort of, when you're talking with an engineer about keeping a system safe and running for years, and the difference between something that's moving parts, that has gears and bearings, and is designed to sit in the harsh elements, versus the panel that just sits there and collects the sun. It's simpler and easier. It's more durable. I mean, they're kind of like just tempered glass, like your car windshield. They are made to take the elements. They can take golf ball size hail. Installers walk on them, not intentionally. They, will drive their car over them. They're made to be installed from Miami to Saskatchewan. They're not fragile at all. My array, the only problem I've ever had with my array in the last 4 years is when my, lost signal from my router. Other than that, it's there, it's cranking, and it'll continue doing that easily for 40 years. So, and wind, it takes a lot of wind, and you have to get your turbine up really high to get consistent wind. It's just not cost effective. By and large, you're not going to put it in a neighborhood. You need to be, 30 feet above the tallest trees to get consistent, valuable wind. If you you know, that's not to say don't do it if you have a good location and you want to, and you can certainly make clean energy that way. But as far as a renewable energy solution that's accessible almost anywhere, and that is incredibly durable with essentially zero maintenance, PV panels are just remarkable for that. I don't have my little prop. I've got a, I bought a calculator in 1996. It's solar powered. It still works. You know, I mean, look, you may have one in your kitchen drawer that, you know, a bank gave away for nothing 10, 20, 30 years ago. That's how durable solar panels are. So there you go.
I always love that example. When we launched the Solarize campaign last year, when we merged with RIA, Andrew did a whole blog post, not to, as he said in the blog post, not to age himself with it. But if you go back to our news section on our website, to read more about that, it's a fun post that he did there. Kind of while you're looking for that calculator, Andrew, another question around whether or not solar panels pose a heat threat to the roof that they're located on.
Oh, just the opposite. They shade the roof. Your air conditioning bills will go down. Though conceivably your heating bills could go up slightly. On average, it's kind of a wash. They'll protect the shingles under it. There, you know, there goes the UV damage on those shingles. That's, yeah, that they don't get, I mean, they don't get hot. They themselves, they like cool weather. But they're not producing heat. They are converting that sunlight heat waves energy into a flow of electrons. So no, that's not an issue at all.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Andrew. That got us to the end of the questions that have come in these last few minutes. So I know that we're past our time here. Thank you, everyone, for hanging in here with us so that we could get through those questions. It's important to us as a mission-driven nonprofit to make sure that we're answering all those questions that were readily available for all of your energy needs. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be sending around a survey after this. We'd love to hear your feedback. Andrew's contact information will also be in that email, as well as the slides to this presentation. So please reach out if you have any additional questions. Thank you again for joining us this evening. And if you have any more questions that you think of tonight or over the coming weeks, definitely reach out to us. Andrew would be happy to answer any of those. So with that, that's all for tonight.
All right. Have a good evening. Thanks, Stacy. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
Give us a call.